I think I want to be like this whole whimsical goddess and just give birth to my baby as naturally as possible. But I might go in there and be like, you know what, give me them drugs.
Girl, you know you are a jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Sounding like you're wasting every time. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Jam, 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 jam. Sounding like you're wasting every time.
You know who it is, everybody. I'm back once again with another video. Today I'm sharing with you all my birthing plan. Before we jump into my birthing plan, I do want to remind you that if you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you don't miss any future content. Obviously I have a baby on the way, so you know I'm going to be vlogging and making plenty of posts about motherhood. I'm a first-time mom. I'll be posting about my baby, maybe some vlogs, some lifestyle type stuff. I also do hair tutorials and reviews and other product reviews. So if you're interested in any of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and most importantly, the notifications bell, because otherwise you might not ever see my stuff. Alright, with that being said, let's jump into my birthing plan. I'm so proud of this, guys. Like, I really wanted to make sure I did a nice cutesy like graphic type thing that you can easily look and see what kind of, you know, birth I'm trying to have. I want to make things very clear cut. Now keep in mind, anytime you have a birthing plan, you really have no control how your labor and delivery is going to end up. I've come to accept that, I've heard that, I know that, but that doesn't mean that you can't be prepared and go in with a game plan. So I completed my birthing plan on Canva. I'm gonna try to post this template in case you guys want to use it. Of course you can change the I love Canva. If you don't have Canva Pro and you do social media, like, what are you doing with your life? If you don't have Canva Pro, you do invitations, anything that requires graphics, it makes it super easy. Like, it's a worthy investment. You can change the colors, you can change the font, you can do whatever you want. You can start from scratch and just do something similar. But I thought I would come on here and share with you guys what my birthing plans are, how I came to these conclusions and ideas, and how I put this together. So yeah, in the description box, I'll try to include the template that I actually use, and I'll also have links to any other material. I think I mainly use the birth preference form from my hospital, so I'll link that down below to kind of give you guys something to start from, and an idea of like what are the different things that you need to consider before delivery, because it's not a lot, but it's kind of a lot. And if you're a first-time mom like me, it's a lot of stuff you may not know about. So let's get into it. Alright, so at the top, welcoming babies I hear. That is my baby's name. I don't know if I've like officially announced that on here. So welcoming babies I hear, our birthing plan, and then I have the due date at the top. I thought it would be really important to make sure I include emergency contacts. Of course, you're going to fill out paperwork, so the hospital will have all this information, but I thought like it can't hurt to just have it like readily right there posted, so they don't even have to go through like where's the paperwork or flip it. Like it's right here. You know who to call because it's right here at the top. It's in red letters, emergency contacts, and then I have listed a local contact, which is Big's mom, and then I have a long distance contact, which would be my dad. I usually put my dad because I feel like he's like the most likely to answer the phone for a random number. And then at the top, of course, I have who the mom and dad is, me and Big. And then I get into my main goals and wishes. Now I chose this wording specifically because I know that, you know, you can have all the plans in the world as for how your labor and delivery is going to go, but you really have no control over it. But these are the goals. This is what I want to achieve, and I think it's important that everyone in the room knows what the game plan is and what I want ideally. Plans change if things happen. We can address it as it comes. So at the top, I put like my main things that I really want. I would definitely want a vaginal birth. I want to avoid C-section at all costs unless it's like absolutely medically necessary. It's an emergency for the health of me or the baby. I do not want an induction. Ideally, I want to do this as naturally as possible. Basically, I'm willing to wait for the baby whenever he's ready, as long as it's not, you know, affecting our health. I do not want an epidural. I know some people, like my mama, look at me like I'm crazy when I say this, but I don't want any pain medication. I want to, and maybe it's the control freak in me, but I want to have as much control and like knowledge of what's going on with my body as possible. So I don't want to numb it out. It's my first time. I want to know what it feels like. And if it gets to the point where I really can't bear it, I can always ask for an epidural. Like, it's not a big deal. And then I also want to exclusively breastfeed. It's important to let your hospital know this because I have heard stories of people wanting to breastfeed in the hospital giving their baby formula without their permission or knowledge. And from my understanding, it's best that, you know, if your intention is to breastfeed, that's all you want to do. You don't want to give your baby a pacifier. You don't want to give your baby formula or anything outside of your breast milk from your breast, because it may cause some confusion or some issues later down the line. Of course, that's not, I'm sure that's not very black and white. Like if they do give you a baby formula, doesn't mean, oh no, I can never breastfeed. But I just want to make sure I start my breastfeeding journey the best way possible, because I know there are so many things that could come up that can make it difficult for me, and I don't want to get discouraged. So I want to make it clear that this is my plan. So those are the big four. Like those are the big, like, I can't call them non-negotiables because, like I said, you have no power over what may happen when you get into that labor and delivery room. But ideally, these are like my top four, what I really want. From there, I get into the nitty-gritty. So I have my plans for labor, my plans for pain relief, and when I'm actually pushing the baby out, and then after delivery. So let's start with labor plans. First, I want to stay at home as long as possible. As long as, you know, I can handle the contractions and I don't get into active labor, I want to stay home and just like be in the comfort of my own place, be able to move around how I see fit, be able to eat and drink as I want. Of course, I want to get as much rest as possible to get prepared for labor and all those things they tell you to do. So I want to stay home as long as possible. I am, however, at least about 45 minutes away from the hospital, so I do have to keep that in mind. And it could be worse depending on the traffic, but we'll play it by ear. But for the most part, I want to be home. I want to be able to get into my own tub, my shower. I have a peanut ball. I have Big, of course. And I just, you know, I feel like you're more comfortable at home, and they advise you to stay home really until you're in active labor. And we'll talk more about that later. Once I am at the hospital, I would like to have the possibility of music playing. Of course, I'll provide my own. Honestly, my preference is for things to be as quiet as possible. Outside of me and Big talking, if my mom happens to be in town when I do go into labor, outside of us, like, I don't want too much like commotion, especially like when it gets down to me. I'm talking about labor now, but even when I get down to when it's actually time for me to push, when I watch other people's labor and delivery videos, it like causes me anxiety to hear these nurses like, like, I don't want all that. I want it to be quiet. I don't like how it seems like a lot of times when women are in the throes of like the most painful part of it, and like the mom is at the point where she can't even talk through her contractions, all the nurses moving around the room and kind of talking over her, it's just something about that I don't like. And I understand the nurses and the doctors have to communicate with each other. I'm working with midwives, so I think there's probably gonna be less of that, especially like if I make it known that that's what I want. But you know, you don't have to be so loud. You can whisper, or, you know, if it's an emergency and you gotta yell across the room, then by all means do that. But I want things to be as like calm and zen as possible. So I wanted to make that known on here also. Actually, that's on here, room as quiet as possible. I jumped ahead. But then I also want to bring my speaker, little 90s R&B playlist, you know, queued up in case I do want that option. I have pictures taken by Dad, so obviously I'm not gonna be able to vlog the whole thing, so I want to make sure that he can record video and take pictures. Now, I purposely didn't put video on here because I don't know if they allow that. I'm not gonna ask. I'm not gonna put it on my birthing plan. I'm just gonna do it and see what happens. I'm gonna get him, kind of put him in charge of that, prepare him by making sure he knows how to work my camera. But yeah, pictures taken by Dad, just so they know that I'm okay with pictures being taken. We talked about room as quiet as possible. Minimal monitoring that allows me to be mobile is super, super important to me, that I'm able to move around and get into whatever position I feel is comfortable. If you guys are interested in that, there is tons of stuff on the internet and on YouTube to show you different labor positions. I'm gonna try to include as many videos as I can that I've watched that I found helpful in the description box. So hopefully I can just bring all that information together and give you guys something like a starting point. So yeah, and then they have to monitor and make sure the baby's vitals are okay, the heart rate isn't dropping or anything like that. Knowing that, you know, I obviously want to make sure that my baby is okay, but I don't want to be like hooked up to a monitor where I can't even get out of the bed. That's not the ideal situation for me. Ideally, I would have wireless monitoring or intermittent monitoring where I guess they just like check every so often. Next, I only want an IV if medically necessary. Again, I don't want to be attached to too much. There's already so much to think about with the unknown of how painful is this going to be, especially without me getting an epidural. So I'm going to do anything extra. Like, I know there might be a situation where I might need an IV. I don't even want to have to think about that, being stuck with the needle or anything hanging out my arm. Like, I just want, just leave me alone. Leave me alone. I don't want to be attached to anything. I don't want anything stuck in me unless it's medically necessary. I want to have the option of using either a birthing ball and or a peanut ball. A birthing ball, if you guys don't know, is basically just like those big balls you might see at the gym. It's the same as a workout ball. And the peanut ball is actually, it's the same thing, but it's shaped like a peanut. And a lot of times I think that's used if you're in the bed and you want to like kind of prop your legs open. I think it helps with like the baby's positioning, gives the baby some space to move around in your pelvis, and it helps with, I think it helps with dilation. I may be wrong about that, but once again, any like videos I found helpful in that aspect, I will have in the description box below. All right, next on to pain relief and pushing, the scariest part of labor. So some of the options of things that I want to use include a massage. Preferably I'd have Big do that, so I do plan on bringing like my bio oil so he can give me a massage if necessary. Breathing techniques. Honestly, I haven't looked into this too much because I feel like once I'm in the throes of it, that's gonna kind of go out the window. So I'm just gonna do what I do. I think the most important part is to remember to breathe. Speaking of that, a lot of times you'll see nurses or doctors telling women to hold their breath when they push. Whereas a lot of stuff that I've read or watched or whatever, they say that's not good to do. And I can't imagine like holding my breath being beneficial, because you need to feed your body oxygen as well as your baby. I don't know, do your own research on that, but for me, I'm going to be breathing through everything that I possibly can, you know, barring that the contractions don't take my breath away. Next, hot or cold packs. So I guess like if you have back pain or wherever you have pain, just having a hot or cold compress or pad to like put on yourself. Some people bring heating pads. I consider buying one, so let me not do too much, so I might not even need that. Moving and position changes, I already talked about that. I want to be free to move and change positions however I need to. And you know, when I get to the point where I can't even walk around, I still want to have the option to, like, if I want to get on all fours, if I want to squat, I want to have all those options, even if I have to do them in the bed. I think in my mind, I imagine myself delivering in a squatting position or on all fours. That just seems like the most natural way to me, but I know that in the moment, hopefully my intuition will tell me what's best and I'll just feel it. We'll see. Water therapy. This is a major selling point. I honestly wanted to do a water birth. Honestly, initially I wanted to do a home birth in a pool, but considering this is my first and I live on the 3rd floor, I figured that might not be the best option. Also, insurance is not going to cover that most likely, so the more affordable and I think maybe practical plan was to have my first birth be at a hospital, so I have all the options because I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I think I want to be like this whole, you know, whimsical goddess and just give birth to my baby as naturally as possible. But I might go in there and be like, you know what? Give me them drugs. It's like, you never know. I wanted to do a water birth. I don't think hospitals usually allow you to actually deliver in the tub, but this hospital that I'm at does have a tub, which is a benefit for me because I heard that it helps a lot with contractions. And I always remember my mom talking about how anytime she's gone to the hospital, she would go to the hospital, they say, oh, you're not ready, go home. And she's like, no, I know I'm ready, I've done this before. And they're like, no, you're not ready. They'll send her home, she takes a warm bath, and boom, she's ready. She comes back and they're like, oh, you're right, you're ready. She suggested recently, and I remember her telling those stories, that a warm bath does help with labor. So I've always known that I've wanted to have that option, and to be able to have that option in the hospital is a plus. And then I have no medication, don't ask me. Like I said, I don't want to do medication if I absolutely don't have to, and I don't want it offered. I don't want anyone in the room, mommy, this goes for you too. I don't want anyone in the room suggesting, why don't you get it? You want an epidural? Do you want this? You want fentanyl? You want morphine or whatever else? You want the gas? Don't offer me anything. I know my options. And if I feel like I need something, I'll ask for it, but don't offer it. Okay? Okay. I want to have the option of using a birthing stool, which I think is like what you use for that squatting position. I also have on here a perineal massage and hot compress. I'm kind of back and forth on this. At one point I was really nervous about the potential of tearing. As I get closer to my due date, I care a little less about, I care, by all means. I do not want a second, third, or fourth tear. However, I watched a podcast recently where it sounds like the perineal massage doesn't really make a huge difference. The hot compress might help, but I think generally your body, as long as you're like in a good position or a more natural position, the chances of you getting like a really bad tear I think are lessened. I want to say they might be increased if you have an epidural. I don't know the stats on that, don't take my word for it, I don't know. But I feel like because I'm a first time mom, the chances of me tearing are probably high. I don't know how comfortable I feel with the midwives giving me a perineal massage or even like holding the hot compress or anything. I'd honestly rather Big do it, but then that's kind of weird because it's like, are the people gonna be in the room? Is my mom gonna be there? So ultimately, I think I may scratch that, but I do want to have it as an option. Like I at least would like to have a warm compress because that just sounds like it'll help relax my muscles. I want to be able to deliver in any position. I've said that. I want to push when I feel the urge. It seems like a lot of times too in hospitals, once you're 10 centimeters and they see the head, they're like, okay, it's time to push. But from what I understand, your body naturally does the pushing for you. The best thing for you to do is just relax. And I also think this might go back to helping to prevent really bad tears. So I don't want anyone to instruct me on when to push. I think from what I understand, you know when to push. Like you feel the urge and you do it on the contraction. I know there are, I think, are dangers attached to pushing too soon. Like they have to make sure you are 10 centimeters because if you're not, it may cause damage to your pelvic floor. Y'all, I'm not a doctor, midwife, doula, or nothing. I'm just telling you like what I recall from the things I've looked up. So again, take this with a grain of salt. But as long as I'm completely dilated and all things are a go, I don't want anyone to instruct me on when to push. I know to push on a contraction. I know that my body will likely let me know it's time, and I just have to help it a little bit. Also, I want to push without a time limit, so I don't want to feel like rushed at all. I want to take my time with it because I think that'll help with preventing tearing also. Next, let's talk about after delivery. I want immediate skin to skin with my baby because I'm gonna be so pressed and I want to hold my baby. I want to cut the cord after it stops pulsating. So basically, you know, once the blood stops flowing from the placenta to the baby, that's when I want to cut the cord. I want to cut it immediately. Dad cuts the cord, so Big will be cutting the cord. I considered keeping my placenta and doing like some capsules because I've heard it helps with postpartum. Once again, the closer I get to my due date, I don't really care to try that. It's just like one more thing on the list, for one that I gotta pay for because I don't trust myself to do it myself. So I'd have to pay somebody else to do it. I'd have to remember to take the pill. I think I was more concerned about postpartum early on in my pregnancy because I did feel so awful and mentally I just felt terrible and I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm not feeling like this when I have the baby. But I felt so good like emotionally and mentally in these last 2 trimesters. Of course, I know that doesn't mean I might not spiral down into depression afterwards. I don't know, I don't want to add another thing, another to-do on my to-do list. So I just kind of let go of the whole placenta capsules idea, but it's something worth looking into. I'll breastfeed as soon as possible. From the breastfeeding class I've taken recently, the baby is tired just like you're tired, so they're probably not gonna want to feed right away, but I do. Oh my gosh, I think it's so cute when the mom's doing skin to skin and the baby starts wiggling around trying to make their way to the breast to eat. It's just like, this is what nature intended. If you ever seen a dog give birth, it's like the same thing. Not to compare myself to a dog, but I mean, it's all the same. Circumcision, I'm not gonna say I went back and forth, but ultimately I decided I don't have a penis, so I don't know. So I'm letting Big decide. Right now it's looking like our baby will be circumcised. I don't think that's gonna change, so yeah. However, I will say that I think circumcision is purely a cosmetic thing and is medically unnecessary. For one, oh, it's ugly. It's only ugly because you're not used to looking at it. Do y'all remember the first time you looked at your vagina? Okay, vaginas are not cute. But anyway, it's only ugly because we're not used to seeing it, at least here in America. Most people you know, I think that I'm sure the majority are circumcised. The more research I've done, the more I realize like it really, for one, logically, it just doesn't make sense that you would be born with something that you don't need. However, I've never met someone personally who said like, man, I wish my parents didn't get me circumcised. But I have met people who say I wish my parents had got me circumcised as an infant. So anyway, decide here, that's between you and your daddy. I ain't got nothing to do with it. And finally, I want Big to go with my baby, where I don't want my baby to ever be out of our eyesight. So if he has to leave the room, I would like for Big to go with him. Whatever happens with that, like I don't want my baby to end up getting mixed up with nobody. I don't want them to misplace my baby. Apparently, some hospitals have trackers for the babies. I don't know the likelihood of my baby being switched, but I'm not taking any chances. Also, I feel like wherever my baby goes, one of his parents should be with him in my mind. So maybe that's just me being the crazy first time out. I don't know, but I ain't taking no chances. And worst case scenario, I might bring a henna pen and put a little mark on his foot before they take him. And finally, at the bottom, I do have a list of approved labor and delivery support persons. At this hospital, they only allow up to 4 people, but only 2 people at a time. So I have a list of the people who I would be okay with being in the room, and that's Big, my mom, and Kia. Kia most likely won't be here, but I just put it up here just in case. And that's pretty much it. So that is my birthing plan. Again, I will try to include as much information as I possibly can in the description box for you guys. In the comments below, let me know what you guys have planned for your births. Whether you're pregnant or not, I think this is something like, if you know you want kids, it's something that's at least crossed your mind, right? If you've already given birth or had multiple kids, how did those birthing plans work out? I love hearing and watching people's labor and delivery stories. So feel free to share in the comments below. Let's get some discussions going. If you found this helpful at all, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. And once again, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you don't miss a thing. And until next time.